What's up, fight fans? This is TST Alyas here, back again with another banger. And today we have a very special guest because he is a bright and undefeated middleweight prospect. He is also Stanford's only pro boxer, Mr. Dante Kirkman. Dante, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Getting ready for fight week. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you for taking the time out to talk to me. So, let's just get straight into it. September 6th, fifth pro fight against Dylan Carlson. Talk to me about that matchup.
Um, yeah, so Dylan, he's a pretty like durable guy. He likes to come out kind of fast and then fades kind of on the back half of the fights. So we're looking to just well, I can't really say too much, but we're just looking to use our strengths, which is our defense and jab, and then when the opportunity presents itself, then we'll hopefully try to get him out of there if we can.
Yeah, you've been in fight camp for a while now, and this is obviously your most gamed opponent to date in your early pro career. What intrigues you most about this matchup?
Um, I think his attitude, because like some people, especially at these early stages, they don't always want to be there, and or they might get knocked down and not get back up. That hasn't really been the case in my other fights, but like this opponent, he seems like like he really like wants to prove something. I think his nickname is like Dylan the Villain, so I think he's looking to play like upset. I think that's kind of like his game. So yeah, that excites me, and just doing what I do as well.
Yeah, second fight of 2025. Last fight, you knocked out Jose Cruz in the first round. Now that you have a bit of time to reflect on that fight, what's the biggest takeaway you had from that?
I think really just like my overall improvement as a pro. Every fight as a pro, I've been improved drastically. With that fight too, since that did like go by so fast, like a lot of the improvement happened in training camp. But then like even like when we were in the gym like early next week doing the mitts, my coach Eddie, he was just like nodding his head, kind of smiling. I was like, "What's up?" And he was like, "Your punches feel a little bit better too." So like just improvement, even just from like one round knockouts. But like that was just like a great lesson to learn, and then also too just like these full training camps. So I'm looking forward to like getting into this fight, carrying what I learned from that last training camp and this training camp as well, since um, I did get to showcase it with a first round knockout, but I didn't get to use all of the tools in my bag there. So hopefully I can show a bit more here.
Yeah, and 23 years old, turned pro last year. How important is it to stay active early in your career?
Well, I just want to get as many fights as possible, but I'm just trying to live in the moment and keep going one fight at a time. So just whenever the next date is after this, I'll be ready. But I'm just focused on this fight on September 6th.
You had a pretty extensive amateur career. What was the biggest difference that you saw, transitioning from maybe training as an amateur where there's less rounds, throwing a lot more volume to being a pro and, having to like kind of be more selective with your shots and maybe even, involve the business of boxing?
Yeah, so I think as far as a technical perspective, one of the things that like really caught me off guard is just like how big a difference like the punches have like an effect on, like for example the jab to the body was a punch I had been throwing like my whole amateur career, but then once I started throwing it in the pros and I started seeing people like actually react to the punch instead of just like in the amateurs just landing a point or something, but once I kind of started seeing that it actually affected my opponents, I was like, oh, like these are like real punches that like actually hurt people. So that like that was something like that I kind of learned technically. And then from the business standpoint, I don't know, it's kind of tricky. Like thankfully like I have like my own team that's been able to collaborate with promoters, so I haven't needed to like get locked into a deal because I'm not trying to be locked in for 5 years. Like people get in these early stages of the career. So um I don't know. It is a bit different than like traveling and fighting like multiple days of the week for like amateur boxing. But I don't know. I think most of the difference just comes from like the technique and effect of the punch.
As a I was gonna mention, as I, in the introduction, Stanford's first pro boxer, how important was it to how hard was it kind of to balance, being a full-time student with, training boxing and stuff like that?
It was extremely difficult, and honestly, it wasn't just a thing I experienced at Stanford, but also like in high school, getting ready to try to get into Stanford in the first place, which was extremely hard. So really, for the past like 8-ish years of my life in boxing, excluding quarantine, we're just like very academically rigorous, while also trying to perform at my best. So that was like very stressful, and I'm just now kind of like discovering a lot more time and like for myself to be able to do like little things like I'm noticing like I have time to stretch more, whereas before I would work out super hard, but then I have to rush to class, eat a little snack, and not really be fueled like I could have before. So like now I'm just kind of living in like the actual pro like scene where I'm able to train, rest, recover, train again, and just have my mind fully on boxing. So I'm definitely just excited to see what the improvement comes from this.
Man, so you said you got your MBA in fine arts, like creative writing and stuff like that?
Yeah, with like a focus on photography, really. Yeah, like I just kind of picked that up like in high school. In high school, like I got a lot of like national art awards, and that's where like I really just kind of got like my creative side fed. And then also just like I just feel like I'm a creative person, and I think a lot of like boxers are more creative than they realize too. So
What would you use that, what do you think you're gonna use that degree in, like, in terms, like, of career-wise, like, if you weren't boxing?
well, uh where I kind of started to use it like during my undergrad was it allowed me to do kind of like creative stuff in my internship at Mayweather Promotions and at USA Boxing, and that kind of like direction of like being in the boxing world, just like in like boxing media, was something that I really enjoyed. So right now, since I'm full time focused on boxing, like I think in the future I'd be interested just in like using like my writing talents or just interdisciplinary talents like just for boxing media, and maybe even like something cool like fight on an undercard and then later on cover the fight like the main event or something.
Yeah, and,
So
it's interesting because there is quite a few, boxers that have gotten their degrees at universities or at colleges and stuff like that. You're the first one to, get it at Stanford. There was, like, some guys I think that fought in the amateurs or kind of had, like, a little bit of, amateur careers, but you're, like, the first pro. How does it feel to kind of, like, make history for that program?
well, it's truly just a blessing because like Stanford, they have like a rich history of Olympic level athletes or world class athletes across every single sport. So I haven't really established my legacy yet by Stanford standards because that's big shoes to fill with multi-time gold medalists and stuff like that. So once I get a world championship, then I'll really be able to make Stanford proud. But it's definitely just been a blessing to be able to say that I'm the first at such an academically special place.
Yeah, and you talked about it, getting an internship at USA Boxing and Mayweather Promotions, obviously two great organizations, two organizations rich in history. How did it feel, just kind of being around that environment?
Well, I think Mayweather Promotions was especially what I needed for like um, my pro career, just being able to see kind of how stuff works behind the scenes, being able to be in like these giant stadiums and like seeing what a full stadium of 16,000 people actually looks like in person versus just on TV. Like just like a bunch of little things, and I think were just like very helpful. And then obviously like the people that I met along the way were it was just like great experiences, and I have just random little stories that I'll be able to tell my kids from now on.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of being in that gym, in that environment, did that just kind of like, motivate you even more to train harder as a pro and kind of get to where you want to be?
Absolutely, because like my dreams as a pro were always to be the best that I could be, and so Floyd Mayweather being my favorite fighter growing up, and then actually getting as close as it gets in his promotional company and seeing people that I knew from the amateurs sign with them, or like meeting some of my favorite fighters in person. It just kind of like made everything more real to me, being like a kid out in the Bay Area. Like Andre Ward is really like who like people out here look up to, but in a way we're kind of disconnected a bit from like other areas of the boxing world. So actually getting connected to the boxing world, especially in that Vegas scene, was definitely something that like made everything feel a bit more real.
Yeah, and you were what years were you entering with Mayweather promotion?
2021 and 2022.
So were you in like that time when Mayweather and Logan Paul were doing the exhibition?
So that was my first event.
Oh,
Yeah, so
really?
like the first time I like met any of them in person, like any of my bosses, like was in Miami at at the fight. So that was definitely like a great way to push me into the deep end and like just meet like a bunch of celebrities and just like the biggest fight week possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like, being around that environment and being around like high level boxers, even before you start turning pro, were you able to kind of take notes without even asking advice, just kind of observing, like taking notes of how like preparation is done, for these high level for like championship level fights or like high profile fights and stuff like that?
Um, kind of like, well, I kind of also got that as well, just from like other like Bay Area pros. Um, Kind of like cool stuff that was just kind of random was like when Tank fought Rolly. I was watching the fight with Jaleel Hackett and Shakur Stevenson, and Shakur had no idea who I was, but he knew who Jaleel was, and so they were just talking like about the fight, and I was just kind of like listening in, trying to hear like what he had to say, like his analysis for the fight. So like it was kind of like stuff like that that I picked up on, um, but most of the time it's just like stuff that I've learned over the years, like from sparring pros, or just like hearing from my coach who has a lot of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And your dad was an amateur boxer growing up. How does it feel that now that you're kind of going on your pro journey that he can kind of see you go through it?
Well, it's like it's truly just been a blessing. Like my dad, he's loved that I box, but he didn't like make me box at all. Like he did bring me to the gym, but he made sure it was done the right way. Like because I came to him like after watching like boxing on TV, and I was like, I want to do that at like 10 years old. And he asked around because he didn't want me to just waste time with some random coach. So he found my coach Eddie Croft, who had an extensive pro career, and then he just supported me every step of the way. My mom too supported me every step of the way, and yeah, he's just been very happy to see me live out my dream.
Yeah, and having that support system, how good does it feel that you do have like a really good support system? You don't have to worry about that, and you can really just focus on your career.
It's like the best I could ask for, really. Like my mom's a lawyer. Like she like reviews all of my stuff, so like I don't have to worry about you know getting backstabbed in like a pretty like brutal industry. So like just being able to have people that care for me, for like from a boxing perspective, and then also like a business perspective, it's all I can ask for, really. So I'm just blessed.
Yeah, absolutely. And boxers, everybody wants to be world champion. Everybody's striving to be at the top of their game. Everybody wants to, be at the biggest shows and stuff like that. There's a lot of guys, they start boxing, to get out of a rough environment or something like that. Some maybe in your shoes, they just choose boxing while also balancing out academics and stuff. Outside of, trying to become a world champion, what's your biggest why for, pursuing this sport?
Well, I feel like that I've been blessed with a lot of things in my life, and I'm Christian, and like I just want to live out my Christian faith, and hopefully just like I feel like it's a pretty common trend now in like the NFL or the NBA where you're seeing like a lot of like outspoken athletes who are trying to be a good example for kids of like what being like a Christian is or a Christian athlete is. So um, for me, like I think that's really like my driving force. Like, yeah, I would love to be world champion, but I just want to truly work my hardest for God and truly be the best that I can be, and just hopefully, be able to inspire people along the way and make an impact bigger than just my record.
Absolutely. And Dante, my last question for you is, what can fans expect when you step in the ring on September 6th?
Masterclass domination.
Dante, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me, and I'm looking forward to seeing you back in the ring.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.